Good morning, everyone. My name is Blair Burglar. I'm a program administrator with the Virginia Main Street team. I'd like to welcome you all this morning to our Exploring Main Street Community Interchange. Next slide, Zachary. Just so you all know, we'll do a little housekeeping before we get started, but in order to reduce background noise, please make sure to mute yourself. As you all may or may not know, we record all of these interchanges. So the session is being recorded and recording will be shared on our website. We have switched to Microsoft Teams, and this is a little Snapchat or snapshot of what you're seeing on your screen. The biggest things for you all to keep in mind is the mic button. Please mute yourself. And then if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to turn it on when we get to that Q&A session, which we will have time at the end for that. Next slide. This is our agenda for the day. So we're doing welcome and announcements right now, and then we'll have a guest speaker, and we'll have some time for discussion and reflection, and then we'll end with our wisdom bites. Next slide. Just kind of sharing some information with you about upcoming events. So on looking forward in July 13th, we have our we're continuing our Switch to Six series, and we have a webinar on strategy-driven programming, and that's going to be with our guest speaker, Kathy LaPlante from Main Street America. In September, we'll have some in-person rev-ups, and these are continuing on with our Switch to Six series. These are going to be on preservation-based economic development, and that's going to be with the facilitator, Kathy Frazier of Frazier and Associates. And these rev-ups are half-day in-person workshops in localities across the state to make it easily accessible for you all and provide some networking and skill building opportunities for you. So our September ones will be in Galax on the 11th, Blackstone on the 13th, and Luray on the 14th. Registration's coming soon, so keep an eye out for that. Our next EMS interchange is going to be on October 25th. That's a webinar. And then we'll do a webinar in November, continuing that Switch to Six series on demonstrated impact and results on November 9th. And we'll also do our Virginia Main Street Merit Awards. More information about that coming soon, but we're happy to bring that back to you all this year. Next slide, Zachary. Just a few reminders for you all, anyone who applied for our DHCD Virginia Main Street grants. We're expecting some announcements, hopefully later this summer, anytime after July. So keep your eyes and ears open for that. That would include the Virginia Main Street Community Vitality Grant and the Resurgence Grant, and then Community Business Launch, which is also within our division in the agency. Some other grant opportunities, we have our financial feasibility grant that's open. It's an ongoing cycle, first come, first serve. IRF Industrial Revitalization Fund is open, Mixed Use on Main open. All the hyperlinks are in the slides for each of those individual programs, and we'll send the slides around and it will be shared on our website so you can access that information directly. Some resources are here. Main Street America, first and foremost, we definitely recommend membership with Main Street America so you can access the points and all of their great resources. And then nonprofitready.org has, it's a wealth of resources and information for you all. And it's kind of open and free. Next slide, Zachary. Set some ground rules in order to make sure that we all have a good time. Let's embrace curiosity. We're all figuring things out. This is we're exploring what's going on. We're all trying to inquiring minds. Let's take space and make space. So, let's be mindful of how much space we're taking, and please stay connected as we move forward and move on in the work that we're doing. So I'm going to hand it off to Zachary today. Take it away.
Thanks, Blair. So before we dive into our guest speaker's presentation, we would like to just kind of get a better idea of who is on the call today. So we're, instead of, playing popcorn, we're just going to kind of go down the participant list and ask everyone to introduce themselves, share your name, where you're joining from, and what's one project or activity that your EMS program or community is working on currently. So to put you on the spot, I'm going to you're first on my list. If you can just unmute and share with the group.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Allison Wood. I'm calling in from Leesburg, Virginia. We are an exploring Main Street community, so we're really just kind of getting started. But one of the projects that we're working on is collaborating with our Small Business Development Center to put together a series of workshops for our retail and restaurant establishments. Thank you for having me this morning.
Thanks, Allison. BT Fitzpatrick.
Good morning, everyone. This is BT Fitzpatrick with the town of Boone's Mill. We're just south of Roanoke, and we're an exploring Main Street community. We just submitted a community improvement grant on May 30th for our downtown revitalization, and are really excited about that. It will include facade upgrades, streetscapes, and some trails. So really appreciate everybody at DHCD, especially Zachary and all that you're doing through EMS, and just glad to be here today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, BT. Next up is Christina Craybill. Hope I said that right.
Yes, that's correct. Christina Craybill. I'm from the Berryville Main Street program in Berryville, Virginia. And one activity that we are working on right now is the Hogan Alley Revitalization Project. It's an alley that connects our Main Street to Crow Street in Berryville. And it's been an effort that started 6 or 7 years ago. And hit a lot of snags, but we finally seem to be in sync with the town of Berryville with funding that's available. And we just made a purchase of a railway window guard that is off an old station that was demolished years ago. And the members in our community salvaged it. And that is going to be our first major architectural piece in the revitalization. So everyone's excited we have it. So that's what we're working on, and we hope to be finished by next May. There's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be done first before people start seeing change, but it's in progress.
Awesome, thanks. David Green.
Okay, I'm David Green, and I'm Executive Director of Alta Vista on Track here in Alta Vista. And the thing I'm most excited about is the recent announcement and awarding of a $20,000 downtown investment grant plus up. Grant is what DHCD calls it. And it's to be utilized not only for recruiting new businesses, but even more exciting for us is we could use it for existing businesses to enhance with signage, window displays, and so forth. So we're excited about that.
Awesome, David. Denise in Halifax.
Good morning. Well, excuse me. Thank you for having me today. I'm assistant manager for the town of Halifax. We are just finishing up a wayfinding signage project here in town, which has been a huge benefit. It has assisted the town and merchants in identifying the parking that is available in downtown. We're getting ready to start kind of a second larger project with our Halifax Village Association in partnership with the town, and that is connecting our Houston Street to our Main Street, to our downtown Main Street. We kind of have two Main Streets here in the town, but the Houston Street that is behind our Main Street merchants is it's people don't know where that street is at. They don't really understand the benefits of that. So that's an undertaking that the group in the town is starting to work on. We just kicked that off about 3 weeks ago. That enhancement project will increase parking not only for merchants but for pedestrians as well, and it will connect to Main Street through an alleyway project that we also have been working on with DHCD as well as the Microsoft Better Block folks as well.
Awesome, Denise. Thanks for sharing. Dylan Arms.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dylan Arms. I'm from Pulaski, and we are currently working on a really nice mural project that'll be going up this month. We've got all of the mural painted on boards, and they will be going up this month. So we're really excited to see that transforming what used to be an old mural on one of our buildings into something new, vibrant, that I feel really just shows what Pulaski has to offer. So really excited for that.
Awesome, Dylan. Ellen Adders. Hopefully I said that right.
Almost. It's aiders.
Aiders.
But
Okay. Gotcha.
almost everybody says adders, so
Gotcha.
maybe I should just move to that camp. So I'm Ellen. I'm with Downtown Front Royal. We are really a brand new exploring Main Street community. I should say a revitalized one. It was around for a while, it died, and now it's back. We don't have an executive director, so it's just a board of volunteers. We had our launch party on the 5th of May to let everyone know that we're back. And as a board, we've just currently divided ourselves into the 4 points of Main Street, and we're each one working on building our committees so that we can get going there.
That's awesome. Julie Little.
Good morning. Thanks for having us. I am the events director for the town of Occoquan, and we are currently putting together a new structure for our tourism through Virginia Main Street, in part, called Visit Occoquan, new nonprofit. And we're exploring all kinds of different opportunities locally for murals and increased tourism and all kinds of things. So we're zooming ahead.
Nice. Thanks, Leslie. Mary Sands. You're still muted. Oh, there you go. I think we hear you.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, this is Mary Sands. I'm with the town of Drake's Branch, and I'm the town clerk. And right now we are not actually working on a Virginia Main Street program or project. We actually started working with DHCD back in 2015, trying to start a revitalization project. And unfortunately, in 2018, we experienced tremendous flooding during Tropical Storm Michael. So we kind of had to divert all of that, and we ended up going through some other funding agencies, and we actually had to build a new building, which we're actually in now, and we're working on some other projects with some other funding, but we're keeping up our certification. Certainly very happy to be here to participate and to listen today.
Well, thanks for sharing, Mary, and, please stay in touch with me as your representative and let me know how I can, help Drake's Branch and, work with you all.
Thank you so much.
Let's see who's next. I have Megan here, but no last name.
Sorry, I'm Megan Swanson. I'm from Waynesboro, destination downtown Waynesboro in the city. We actually just kind of finished up a project. We got our DORA license, and now the second step of that project is to put it in effect and start having some events. We just finished up with our Hiker Fest, which was it was our first year. It was a very popular festival that we will be doing again. And then we have our summer festival coming up. So we have a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Morgan Rose.
Hey, I am the secretary for the Warsaw Richmond County Main Street program. I am new to the Main Street program. I just started last month. We actually have a meeting tonight. So I am excited to see where this program goes. So thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and learn some new things. And like Megan just said, we are actually in the process of getting our DORA too. So that's exciting.
Nice. Well, thanks for sharing, Morgan. And, especially as a new kind of program, there's a great group of peers and network here that's designed to support you, as well as the VMS rep. So please let us know how we can be of assistance to y'all.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Next up is Rebecca Adcock. Are you able to unmute Rebecca?
She texted.
She did.
Her microphone's not working.
Okay, gotcha. So there may be something in the chat, but I can't see that at the moment.
I can report, Zachary.
Okay, sure.
With the town of Stewart, and they just finished the downtown CDBG planning grant and now have applied for implementation funding with CDBG and ARC.
Nice.
Yeah, and they're looking to purchase a local theater building to lease and run as an event music center. Very cool.
Yeah, very cool. And we have an 804-339 number. I'm not sure if that was someone who's on the call that just also called in or someone separate. If you'd like to unmute.
Hi, this is Pat Pugh, and I'm with the Warsaw Main Street program also, along with Morgan. I want to say hello to everyone, and actually we have been an affiliate Main Street program since 2011.
Okay.
And our Main Street program right now is going through its own revitalization with a new board of directors, so we're excited about that. Warsaw has done a great job. The town of Warsaw has done a wonderful job on implementing the Main Street 4-point approach. And so we're excited about recruiting new businesses now and recruitment and retention. Retaining these businesses that have come into Warsaw with new facades, and it's just been a great program. So we're looking forward to the next step, which may be a big one, which are our sidewalk project.
Mm-hmm. Very nice.
Well, thank you.
And last but not least, Tracy, I may save you for your actual introduction if you'd like. That just make things easier for you, but okay. So I think that's everybody. If I missed someone, let us know, but I think that we have a pretty good group of people here today. And before I turn things over to Tracy and let her tell you about all the positive things that are happening in the town of Louisa, I'm going to brag on her for just a minute. So Tracy is the executive director of both the Louisa County Chamber of Commerce and the Louisa Forward Foundation. But she's also someone that has an incredibly strong passion for business growth and community development. Having worked with her a bit myself in the past, I have seen firsthand how dedicated and committed she is to this work, and her enthusiasm is really contagious. Making a positive and lasting impact on your community is what it's all about here at Main Street, and I'm going to let Tracy take it away now and talk more about how she and others are doing exactly that in Louisa. So Tracy, you just let me know when you need me to advance the slides.
Thank you.
And I'll do that.
Thank you so much, Zachary. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the invitation to be part of this. I'll fully admit, especially for those of you that are new at this, you'll feel a little bit of my humble nature. When I got the invitation to share, my first response was, really, I don't know that we've really done anything to share. And but as I was going through preparing this, I was actually a little bit taken aback about the amount of work, not just from me, but by our entire community and volunteers of what we've been able to accomplish in a short period of time. And even more inspiring is the amount of momentum that is occurring with our Main Street in Louisa. So yeah, Zach, you could go ahead and advance. I'm just going to kind of give you guys a short little synopsis of what I'm going to cover today. I'm going to share a little bit about the Louisa Forward Foundation. I'll share a little bit about the town of Louisa, which is in Central Virginia. I'm going to talk a little bit about our timeline of activity that's happened just in a few short 2.5 years, and then future plans that we have moving forward. So going to the next slide, we're just going to jump right into what is the Louisa Forward Foundation. We started this at 2020 when the pandemic hit. A Chamber of Commerce, if you don't know, is a 501c3, C6 organization. So a lot of the funding and grants that were coming out to support business during that time, the Chamber was not able to tap into that, even though pretty much 100% of our work was pointed at supporting business during such a critical time. So with my background, I've been in nonprofit 501c3 fundraising and marketing for well over 30 years, 35 years or so. I spoke to the board for the chamber and we agreed to form a complement foundation that supports our work, but would allow us to tap into a lot of the grants and funding to support us. And it has been a game changer for what we've been able to do for this community, as well as with the Chamber of Commerce. So our mission, you can see what's there. But what did we do next with the Forward Foundation? That's on our next slide. Most immediately, we stepped into getting a relationship secured with the Department of Housing and Community Development, the DHCD. My involvement here in Louisa began in 2019, and the chairperson that hired me, she was really involved and engaged with DHCD. In fact, we submitted a grant before we were even part of the program, and we found out very quickly that that's why we didn't get the grant, because we have to go through the process of applying and becoming a VMS community. So now that we had the Forward Foundation as a 501c3, we approached our town, and they were really excited to endorse and support the Louisa Forward Foundation as the lead partner to apply. What I've found very interesting about our town that jumps out, you can see the little heart. We are literally in the central part of Virginia, and the vision I highlighted there really speaks to the VMS program. Our Main Street defines us, providing a sense of place and identity and drawing citizens together to create a progressive, vibrant, and caring community. However, that's part of their vision, but there hasn't really been a consistent, strong group 100% focused on doing just that. And that's where we stepped in. So moving right into the next slide, which is kind of just the rough timeline of what we've done. We joined the Virginia Main Street Network in the fall of 2021. So that's when we were first accepted and received, and I met Zach, and he was great. While my involvement has been with nonprofit organizations, I've never been familiar with the Main Street initiative. So it was a little bit unnerving, but I'm always up for a challenge and learn and grow. So it's pretty exciting. Jumped right into starting to build a steering committee in January of 2022. And then most immediately in March of that year, the big Main Street Now conference was in Richmond, Virginia. And I was encouraged to go. Mind you, we hadn't done really anything as an organization related to Main Street yet. we were really in the learning phases about what is all of this and what are we doing. And I was very much overwhelmed. I'm not going to lie. It was like drinking from a fire hose. But what I did come away with that attending that conference, and I would encourage anybody to go, no matter where you are in the process, was I'm a big rip off and duplicate type of person, R&D. And there were a lot of ideas that were shared at the very many conferences and sessions that I attended. And several of them we have tweaked and adjusted to start doing in our community, and I'll share that in just a second. Just moving right along in the timeline there, you know, through the summer months, we continued, we submitted a grant. We didn't do a lot of activity, just conversations within our steering committee. We did apply for a vitality grant because we knew with all these ideas, everybody had a particular vision and idea of what they felt was the one thing that was going to make the biggest difference in our community. And we really needed an expert. We needed somebody to come in and really tell us, you know, how does this happen? What is the best course of action? What are the things that we don't know that will greatly help us? And that was what that vitality grant was. We want a consultant, a professional that has experience to come in here and guide us all, including me and our steering committee, on how to develop our community. So we were awarded the vitality grant and immediately started working with a Main Street Now consultant to begin our strategic marketing analysis. Now, between the time of getting our consultant on board and laying out the plan of when we were gonna pull the trigger on the plan, we did start working on something that kind of fell in our lap within the Main Street area, which was Charge Up Louisa, and I'll share a little bit about that. But we did launch our strategic market analysis in January 2023, and then we just wrapped it up in May. So on to the next slide, I'm going to talk to you. Most important thing really that we identified, and that just went blank, but that's okay. The most important thing from our perspective is the need to have a collaborative environment. Make sure you've got all the right players in the mix and that you have strong partners committed to what you're trying to do. So the work that we did over the course of last year and really since the inception of becoming a Main Street community, we were identifying groups, officials, county and town related, local businesses, commercial property owners, residents, all of these that you see listed, to get them engaged, to make sure that they knew what we were working on and what we were embarking on as a long-term strategy. And our community, if you've faced any, I'm sure you've faced similar situations, that's probably the most challenging part and will continue to be a challenging part moving into our strategic planning. Because, as I mentioned, everyone has their own views and opinions, and trying to bring everyone together, to convene everybody to collaborate on a mutually agreed upon vision and timeline is really a critical step to ensuring long-term success. So spend the appropriate time to build those partnerships and get those collaborators to, you know, make it easier on yourself in the long term. So moving into the next slide, I do want to share a couple of things that kind of happened organically as we were building these partnerships and collaborations. The Main Street businesses, you know, business struggling, and they were coming to us. We need help. We need more awareness. 50% of the businesses on our Main Street are new, less than 2 years old. We've had a big changeover on our Main Street, particularly in the downtown area. And so these new businesses, we collectively worked with them and came up with a Meet Me on Main strategy last summer. It was really great because the businesses came together and we were trying to build more awareness. The results, unfortunately, 4 of the 6 dates that we had planned were a washout. We basically were just really trying to draw attention to one concentrated day of the month that would bring people down here. We would have bands and games and things like that. And 4 out of the 6 dates washed out. But a great result was the collaboration amongst these businesses continued even after this Meet Me on Main campaign ran. And that continues to be a really great plus as there's camaraderie and support across the businesses. The other slide, the next slide, is a program that I mentioned, Charge Up Louisa. This started last August. We were presented Julie Manzeri, who's our lead chair with the LFF and the Main Street Initiative here. She brought to us from Dominion an opportunity for a grant to bring charging stations into the area. It was a reimbursable grant. And so a small group of us, another REC electric company and the town and some other stakeholders that we've been working with, we got together and really kind of discussed what's the feasibility of doing this? Can we take advantage of this grant opportunity? It was a very fast and furious discussion because we had to meet a deadline. And what happened from that is we didn't wind up going with the Dominion grant opportunity, but we did wind up in a relationship with the town and Rappahannock Electric Cooperative. You guys are actually hearing this before you even made an official public announcement. Rappahannock Electric Cooperative stepped up to actually be our funding partner for 2 locations, 4 charging ports within the town of Louisa. And we're on target to have those installed prior to Labor Day weekend. It's 98% funded by Rappahannock Electric. So we're super excited about that. And then we did, with Rappahannock Electric leading the application, submitted on the behalf of the town of Louisa a much larger federal grant, minimum of $500,000, to expand the number of EV charging in our entire community. This idea, as I mentioned, it was on my mind because I saw it at the Main Street Now conference. I saw a Main Street that had EV charging that was bringing people into the area, and it's definitely going to drive and make an impact here in our town. So 2 exciting things that were kind of happening, but I want to get to the next slide, which is the bigger piece of what we're talking about today, which is the strategic market analysis. The bulk, 80% of the funding to be able to hire the consultant was provided through a DHCD grant. We did also receive grant funding from 2 other sources, the Walmart Foundation, as well as Bama Works, which is an organization in Charlottesville that supports Louisa entities. So this market analysis, we felt really, really strongly that before we could start doing activities, festivals, wayfinding signs, parking. We had all these things that people were throwing out ideas. We really wanted to get a grip on what do we not know about our community. And then we also wanted somebody with expertise working with Main Streets to show us what we do have and what is the opportunity and what are things that we're missing because we just don't know. So it's been a really great experience, actually. We started the January, February timeframe was the first phase, and that was a lot of brainstorming, pulling together data points, information, a survey in our community to get input from residents, business owners, and even people outside of the town. We're a very tourism-driven area. We have Lake Anna as part of our community, and as well as Zion's Crossroads, which is well-trafficked area, people going east to west in Virginia. So we opened it up, and we had a really great partnership actually with our local paper that launched. On the front page of their paper, they put the QR code for this survey, and Matt, our consultant, was really praising us for the amount of response and the variety of response that we got. So that was a really great pulling in your local media to take advantage of that data and information. Then the second phase, what we did is Matt brought to us with the focus groups, as well as spending half a day with our stakeholder groups and doing a tour. He presented kind of the initial findings from the survey, as well as other data points and information that he captured. And then the third phase, March, April, and May, we continued with focus groups. We had a review day with our steering committee, and it was really a brainstorming and feedback session with recommendations from Matt. So I want to go to the next slide just to kind of give you some examples of some of the information that came out of this strategic analysis. First and foremost, the survey. It was some of the things that we found from the survey were surprising to us, but the most obvious things were there. Number one, parking. Everybody's been complaining about parking in our area, but what was cool, having the consultant Matt share with us, perception is reality. The perception is that we don't have a lot of parking in our main downtown area, but the reality is we do, but people struggle to find it. You know, so we have a champion here locally that has been talking about wayfinding signs for years, and there's been no real traction. So that was really helpful to see that, as well as other information. A lot of demographic information was provided to us, not from the survey, but a lot of the work that the consultant did through his resources. It was really insightful information that we didn't know as a chamber, as a foundation, as a community, as a town. Significant information is some of the data points related to the 15-minute drive time that we have to bring people into our downtown center. Where we are located as Louisa, as you saw on the map, we're kind of a triangle between three major metropolitan areas, Richmond, Charlottesville, and the Fredericksburg, Northern Virginia area. So our community has a lot of exodus and people going outside of our county to get resources. And our goal is to really try to bring them into our county seat, the center, because we do have a lot of really cool assets for them to take advantage of. Having this kind of information pulled together was really beneficial. The next slide is another example of some of the information that came out of the report, psychographic information describing the different types of audiences that our businesses need to be mindful of to attract to come to their shops, right? So I put these southern satellites and top tiers. That's an example. This all came from our consultant. It gives a really detailed description, but what it does is allows us to help guide our businesses here on Main Street in particular on their marketing strategies. For example, we have this really phenomenal boutique next to a children's consignment shop. Both of them very, very different products and service, you know, what they provide. So knowing this information about the different psychographics for people in the community, they can better target how we're attracting people. And then we, determining our plan moving forward, we are armed with better information on how to attract people into the community. So the next slide, I think that might be one more example of some of the information. This is really some of the recommendations from the findings, and I'm happy to share the report if anybody's interested so you can see what kind of information comes out completely. But this is the part where he really started offering specific strategies based on the tour that he had here, based on all the demographics, meeting some of the business people, the focus groups that we did, and then providing some suggested ideas or strategies. Okay, so this is, you know, one example, an ecosystem. Our problem is we don't have density in our downtown area to bring and keep people here. So that's a critical finding, and really a lot of light bulbs were going off with us as well as our business community. So the next slide, I think, kind of wraps up or talks about our future plans. And so what I want to do is just preface by saying our future plans really are driven by this strategic market analysis. As I mentioned, we just wrapped this up in May. And as you all may know, there were grants due at the end of May with DHCD, and we did submit for another Vitality grant because we have this wonderful information. We had a final review, and that group of people that were all involved with this analysis project, in that meeting with our consultant, we started to see people kind of lobbying and fighting for what they were most passionate about, right? And what they heard in his recommendations that they could now strengthen their own, you know, agenda, for lack of a better word, to pursue. And so what was very obvious is we have to do the next step, which is we have to take all of this and then we have to all agree on what is our strategic plan and taking this information moving forward for the next year to 3 years to 5 years. So moving on to the next slide is where I'm going to talk about, you know, we needed to secure funding to pull together this strategic plan. We needed to and want to bring in a professional to do it that will allow even myself to participate, because this is a learning, exploring opportunity for me as well. You know, as it was mentioned, I'm running the Chamber of Commerce and the Forward Foundation. The Main Street Initiative is just one project underneath that foundation. So I needed to kind of remove myself from being such a specific, you know, organizer for the Main Street. We needed to get somebody in that role to pull together people, keep them on target. So securing funding, hiring a consultant, and then creating that 3-year plan. Now, what I want to mention here, we did submit for the Vitality grant to help us secure this funding. And luckily enough, one of the members of the town EDA was involved with the review session, and he reached out to us, hey, I want to try to secure some funding to support this initiative. What is it that you need? And immediately I said, we need funds for a strategic plan. I don't want to wait until we find out about the DHCD grant because that's too much time to go by. I want to strike while the iron's hot, basically. And so our town EDA did approve a grant for $4,000 for us to move to the next phase, which is the strategic plan. And we have a date set for our first half-day session in mid-July, bringing together the stakeholders to get going on that. So really, really excited. Our goal is to have that completed within about 6 to 8 weeks. And by that time, hopefully we'll know about the grant, which on the next slide will tell you the Vitality grant that we submitted not only was for the strategic plan, but also the wayfinding assessment. We know with what we have going on, particularly the addition of charging stations that I mentioned to you, that our wayfinding system needs improvement. And so in that grant request, we included bringing on an agency that does a lot of work here in Virginia with the DHCD wayfinding. They're up in Waynesboro, the Fraser Associates. Come in, do an assessment. Again, I'm a fan of kind of assessing what we have and what we need before going all in and just, hey, this is what I want, because I don't always know what the best, our group doesn't always know what the best is for our community. We want experts to help guide us in that process. So that's the most immediate thing that we've submitted for a grant request. And just stepping back to the strategic plan, while we're working on this short-term strategic plan, planning is going to continue, and we're going to need funding, because the other piece to the plan is, how do we build out an organization dedicated to Main Street? You've heard I'm basically wearing 3 hats right now, and that is not sustainable to be running 3 significant organizations basically with big missions. So we need a plan, an approach that includes funding and so forth to help continue our Main Street program here in Louisa. So we'll be mixing that in with our grant funding if we are awarded funds, which is pretty exciting. So the next slide kind of just, I think, wraps up piece to grant funding, and what we're doing is renovating our space right here on Main Street. We are one of the stakeholders. We want to improve and make this a much more open and engaging space for both our businesses and our community to come in to be able to use the space. And then I think this just about wraps it up. The next slide, I don't think I have anything else. Oh, of course I do. The biggest thing, the town actually celebrates 150 years. Their official date was in March, but we are doing a large celebration on September 30th. So we are using that as also an event and a celebration to shine a light on Main Street. We have a parade. We're doing opening ceremonies. Invited the governor. If you got any help with that, Zach, I'd appreciate it. And then we have a big festival with businesses, food trucks, entertainment, fireworks happening. So it'll be a full day of fun and engagement all about the town of Louisa and our Main Street community. And you guys are all invited if you'd like to come. Just let me know. And with that, I think the next slide is the last one. You know, together we're all working just to lift up Louisa. And I appreciate the time and the ability to share with you all today.
Thanks. That was awesome, Tracy. Let's see. I think before we continue, we're going to stop presenting to change the way that we are presenting so you all can see these slides as we enter some information. Blair, is my screen still showing?
No, you stopped presenting.
Okay,
So
let
you
me
have to
share.
reshare.
Okay.
Perfect. Yes.
Okay.
We realized in the beginning that you weren't seeing the edit mode, so you didn't see all of the wonderful notes we captured, but hopefully you'll see us typing now. Sorry, if you haven't noticed, you have the B team here today. We have some VMS team members that are out, and so Zachary and I have been tasked with leading this interchange.
Our master facilitator, Kyle, is not here, but he will be back.
We won't let him know that we flopped.
Well, thank you so much, Tracy, for sharing, what's been keeping you and others busy over the last year and a half, 2 years or so. Even though I think it was back in the fall of 2021, which feels just like yesterday, that you and I were talking about exploring Main Street and, working to help Louisa become a part of the VMS network as an EMS community. It's definitely great to see that you all have been able to take meaningful steps, toward setting a strategic direction and also building a strong and engaged Main Street program. So I can't wait to see what the next couple of years looks like for you all in Louisa. So as we move forward, based on what we just heard from Tracy and learned about Louisa, we'd like to hear from others on the call as you all are hopefully in reflection mode to Main Street or have an active EMS program. Take a second and think about, what was your aha moment? What has worked in Louisa that your EMS community or program could implement or duplicate? We're all about R&D at Main Street, rip off and duplicate, if it works for you. And what resources do you need to make it happen successfully? And this is open to everyone to share if you have any thoughts around that, but what were some of those key takeaways that you saw from Tracy's presentation? Anybody like to share? We will call on someone. Anyone have any key thoughts? David?
Yeah, Zachary, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me to this. We're, for everyone else, already affiliated with the Virginia Main Street program, so we're not exploring, but we're going through kind of a restructuring, regrouping. Ironically, with a name like Alta Vista on Track, we're trying to get back on track again with the VMS strategies. And in fact, we have a strategic planning session next month almost in exactly a month. And so hearing what Tracy was saying was really reinforcing what Zachary's having to again get back on track again. So there were several things I was taking notes, even though I know that I can access the slideshow or the presentation at the DHCD website. It was just nice for me to just listen and take notes about things that are parallel here in Alta Vista. So that's just what I wanted to share about.
Great. Thanks, David. Anybody else? We'd love to hear from a couple more people. Denise, do you have any thoughts on Halifax, as you all are pretty active in some of this work and next steps you all may want to take?
Yes, actually, so I was very impressed with Tracy and seeing everything that Louisa has done and continues to do. And you know, kind of on the same sense with Alta Vista, there is the Halifax Village Association kind of went to the wayside, so to say, or kind of put everything on hold, especially when COVID hit. The association kind of just, they stopped meeting when we attempted to, help get that group back together. Some of the former members, no longer were interested or just, didn't want to come back out. But I can honestly say over the past 6 months or so, I was impressed with her business collaboration efforts, and that's what I am seeing an increase here with now. We've just had 3, maybe 4 new businesses open up here in downtown over the past 2 to 3 months, which is a huge blessing for the town of Halifax. But the business collaboration, I think, is so important. And I'm really seeing that start to grow. So I appreciated her mentioning the business collaboration part. And I think any way that we can get our local merchants involved is a plus, and it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Christina, I think that you have your hand raised.
Yes, so what stood out to me, I loved the Meet Me on Main. I love that concept. So in Berryville, we were at a place this past fall that I'm a business owner in the community. I actually own a fair trade gift shop on Main Street. And I became aware that basically the entire board of the Main Street program was disengaging. They were all like resigning right before Christmas, which is not a good time, like, for me. And so I offered to be involved, but I'm like, I can't come till January. But since I've been re-engaged on the board again and trying to reestablish, my biggest struggle has been the newer board members that did come on, helping them accept. And most of them do not work or operate businesses on Main Street. So that at times they have a hard time grasping the struggles that brick and mortar businesses have faced. And so for me, the Meet Me on Main, that effort to be people that are listening and one by one having important conversations, that you're hearing what the businesses need and drawing attention to them. And so reminded me about a month ago, I asked our social media coordinator if he could create a private business group for just brick and mortars in downtown for me to communicate with them. And I did this for 2 reasons. First, to have a way of communication, but I also wanted to see who's going to engage with this, because that lets me know the thermostat, where we're at, like who's engaged with us and who isn't. And it's very sobering, but one by one, I see some of our most critical persons re-engaging. And so it's hopeful for me. So that whole idea of hope. Yeah. And so Meet Me on Main, I love that.
all that, Christina. Tracy, did you want to say something to?
Yeah, there's a couple things that I didn't mention, and I just wanted to remind everybody. This Meet Me on Main thing made me think about it, so thank you for those comments. I tend to forget, I don't know how many of you are actually engaged or partner with your Chamber of Commerce or your economic development group, or even if you have a tourism entity in your community. They are
Tracy, I think we accidentally muted you. If you can unmute yourself. Yeah.
That's okay.
Okay,
I was
sorry.
just saying chamber, tourism, and economic development authorities in your areas, or they're critical partners to what you're doing. If you have a separate entity group, make sure you get engaged with them, because a chamber of commerce, it's very similar what we're trying to do, lifting up the businesses and so forth. The other thing, I had my own aha moment getting engaged with the EMS program, as well as just even going through this preparing, which was it's not just about the businesses, it's also about the assets and building spaces and what you have. Even something as simple as an empty parking lot. We have this amazing behind Main Street open parking and things, and it really just opened up our eyes to how can we build density with all the assets that we have in our community. So anyway, the chamber and other groups besides just the businesses are going to be critical to making that happen.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to share before we move on to the next slide? Okay. Well, moving on, as we wrap up, we'd like to hear about next slide, a time when your organization has successfully identified a strategic direction and or implemented, work around a particular focus area, like we're kind of hearing from Tracy and Louisa. But before we hear from some of you, though, let's kind of first break that down a bit. Essentially, we're talking about that deliberate path or overarching theme that you've taken or adopted to rally volunteers, inspire investors, and really revitalize your downtown. Whether your strategic direction or focused area has been informed by meaningful community engagement or solid market understanding, as we've seen from Tracy's presentation, or simply, been pulled off the shelf, so to speak, all of your communities have unique attributes and specific needs that need to be addressed to bolster the local economy and ensure quality of life for all. So as an example, you may be seeking to develop your downtown as a regional or statewide tourist destination, wanting to support an arts or entertainment focused environment downtown. You may be leveraging and connecting downtown with outdoor recreation attractions to promote your outdoor recreation economy, or quite simply focusing on local families and family and businesses. So there are a lot of possibilities, and some more specific and refined than others with regard to what direction you're pursuing to revitalize downtown. But as we've talked about today, strategy is the key as to how you go about doing that. So circling back, has there been a time when your organization has successfully identified a strategic direction and or implemented work around a particular focus area? Is there any key themes that you all are working with out in your EMS communities that you can share with us today? Anyone? Not everyone speak at once. David, do you have something you'd like to share?
I was holding back because, again, like I said, I'm not in exploring, but I do think it's noteworthy that this year the town of Alta Vista and AOT helped provide the, and you actually can speak to it more as far as exactly how AOT, it was kind of a brainchild, I believe, of Alta Vista on Track a couple years ago. But we now have what's called the Spark Innovation Center, which is a old firehouse that was attached or almost attached, a little alleyway between it, to the to town hall, and it was a storage place and not very attractive, and now it's a beautiful state-of-the-art innovation center workspace where people can have access to printers, special printers. We have 2 3D printers, we have laser engraving, and businesses can utilize this space, and they do. In fact, the 4 offices or 5 offices that were created have all been filled, and now there's a waiting list. And we had only developed, I say the town had only developed the downstairs, and now they're looking at possibly doing the upstairs to create even more office space. But it's bringing people, businesses, kind of an incubator, if you will, and a collab. This week, well, throughout the summer, the person who's heading up the Spark Center, she's partnered with the local high schools and community college, not in Alta Vista, but to get instructors for STEM training, education. She calls it a summer camp. And so they were doing robotics this last week, and then I'm not sure what they're doing this week, but there's a lot of activity in the downtown now with young people and businesses, and the goal is to get some of those businesses that are currently renting right now in the Spark Innovation Center, brick and mortar businesses. So, and again, DHCD, I want to thank them and the town of Alta Vista government, but that was something that was a strategic idea that got implemented and is working.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, David, because I think that these kind of spaces, whether they be as advanced and, fully thought out as the Spark Innovation Center, or something that's more pared back and simply just a traditional co-working space, these can really be pipelines for entrepreneurs to test their products, to find working space that they can potentially move into a brick and mortar downtown in the future. And I know the Spark Innovation Center, if anyone's ever in Alta Vista, that's definitely worth visiting. Mary, I think that you had your hand raised.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to speak. I
Mhm.
think one thing that I would really like to say is that, as I had mentioned earlier, we had started working on a revitalization grant through DHCD in 2015. And we were probably several years into that when we realized we had a flooding issue. And then a week before that was to be presented to the public is when we actually had the flood from Tropical Storm Michael, which really devastated our town. And so I think what I would really like to reiterate to people is that sometimes you have to change course. Sometimes, whatever you're dealt with, what your vision may be today, may change tomorrow, but you cannot give up. So what we ended up having to do was we had to actually go and we've applied with FEMA and BDM to get to work on a project because some of our buildings were so badly damaged that they are actually going to have to be torn down. So we had to actually build a new town hall firehouse. Even though what we went through, was not good, we're a very small town of 500 and some people. Our major industry is gone, but we're not giving up. We're still moving forward. We have built a nice, beautiful building that's an asset to the community. So once we get through this project, we're actually one of the buildings that was going to be torn down, somebody has bought it, and at one time we were without a bank. We have a bank now. So once the buildings are torn down that stay in the project, we're going to have green space. So we're working on ideas of what we can do with that green space. once we get to that point. So we're a very small town, but we'll keep on going. And like I said, I think I just wanted to say that, you can't give up. And sometimes, what your vision may be, you might be presented with a situation where you have to change directions, and that's okay, because that's just the way things are. But there are wonderful funding agencies out there, DHCD, and other ones as well. So I just wanted to kind of share that as well.
Well, I think that you're right, Mary, and thank you for sharing that, because, one of the 8 principles of Main Street is change, and change comes in many forms. So it's important not to shy away from that, and change can be positive. It may be spurred on by a change in, your elected officials. It may be a natural disaster that forces you to kind of shift course and address some of the realities of your efforts and your program. So it is important to kind of be flexible as our markets, our communities, our situations in many different shapes and forms change over time. So yeah, that's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mary, hi, this is Blair. Were you with Drake's branch?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I had it for the notes. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Hey, Kim, I hate to put you on the spot, but I know that you joined the call a little late, and Lawrenceville is, kind of new to the Exploring Main Street tier as well. Do you have any thoughts that you'd like to share from today's presentation, or what you're thinking about? Kim may or may not be with us, but that's okay. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share before we move on? Okay. Well, thank you for joining us and participating in this EMS interchange, and a huge thank you to Tracy and sharing more, or for sharing, more about all the great things that are happening in Louisa. I appreciate the feedback that you all have brought here as well. The recording and slide deck of this interchange will be made available soon, so be on the lookout for a follow-up email from Virginia Main Street. We'll get it posted in all the usual places and in the newsletter, but we'll also send something directly to all the participants or those who registered today. And as always, please feel free to reach out to your VMS representative should you have any questions or wish to learn more about how we can support your community. Our individual emails are hyperlinked here. Hopefully you all have already made contact with your VMS representative, but if not, we're always here to help you all. And if you have questions about any other programs within our Economic Development and Community Vitality division here at DHCD, we also have our specific program administrators and managers hyperlinked here as well for you to reach out should you ever have questions about grants, eligibility requirements, things of that nature. So don't be shy to contact us. We're always happy to help. Blair, do you have anything else you want to add before we close?
I think that's it. Thank you all so much for your time. It was great connecting. We look forward to seeing you. As Zachary said, please don't hesitate to reach out to either your assigned program administrator or just our general team. We'd love to get in touch with you and see how we can support your local efforts.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you again so much, Tracy. This was great.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Have a great week, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Tracy. We'll be in
Anything
touch
else?
with you.
Yeah,
Stop recording.
yeah, you can stop recording and give me your real feedback.